People in Nigeria have queued for hours to cast their ballot in the tightly contested presidential election as Africa's most populous nation and biggest economy chooses its new leader. Polls were meant to close several hours ago, but some voting stations remain open due to delays. There are three top contenders in the race to succeed President Muhammadu Buhari, who is stepping down after serving the maximum 8 years. The election comes amid worsening violence and economic hardship for the continent's top oil producer. Michael Famarotti is co-founder and head of intelligence at data company Steers, which has been collecting information in the lead-up to Nigeria's vote. I asked him what it suggests about the results.
So what I would say is that the poll, and so our polls and a lot of corroborating polls are saying one thing that is quite clear, and that is that the Labour Party candidate, who was considered an outsider and still is actually, is the most popular candidate in Nigeria for the presidential elections. Now, the emphasis on popular is that in Nigeria, like in many parts of the continent, that popularity does not always translate to victory. And essentially, that's what we're going to be keeping an eye out on to see if that popularity does play out in terms of the final vote count.
So what are the main issues that voters have been concerned about?
So again, the polls and also anecdotal data are quite emphatic. Nigerians care the most about insecurity. That is unsurprising. I think even the international media has carried a lot of stories and reports from the last 18 months, just showing the levels of insecurity that has plagued the country. Sometime last year, I believe in August, September, quite famously, there was a mass prison break in Abuja, the capital, and a number of Boko Haram terrorists were released from the prison. So generally, there's been an air of insecurity, and that has only risen in the run-up to the polls. Just over the last week, we have seen two candidates killed already, two senatorial candidates killed, and that just emphasizes the level of insecurity that everybody in the country is facing at the moment.
And we've seen more young voters registering this time round, haven't we? What difference could they make?
Potentially huge. So in terms of Nigeria's voting population, last cycle there were about 83 million voters. This time we've added another 10 million, and most of them are young voters. So they could potentially sway the race. For those who are aware, in 2020, there was a massive police brutality protest movement galvanized by the youth. And since then, there's been a sort of political awakening. And the sentiment generally is that if the youth do come out en masse to vote, they are likely to vote for the Labour Party candidate and could even swing the elections his way.
And what about regional variations? Do different candidates have more support in certain areas?
Yes. So again, for those not aware, Nigeria is broadly split into a Muslim North and a Christian South. And what is striking is that from 1999 to date, Nigerians generally vote along religious lines. So in the Steers poll, only 3% of Muslims are voting for the Christian Labour Party candidate, and only 17% of Christians are voting for any Muslim candidates, right? So you have this situation where the votes are really stratified by the North and South. There are some nuances in those regions, but generally, Christian South votes one way, and the Muslim North tends to vote the other way.
So you talked about the issue of insecurity. What about the economy? How important will that be for the new president?
Very. So incredibly, in Nigeria, in the run-up to the polls, over the last 3 weeks, there has been a cash shortage because the Central Bank of Nigeria governor decided to redesign the currency about 3 to 6 months ago. One of the reasons that has been put forward by political agents is it was to curb vote buying. Now, as laudable as that goal may be, it has led to a severe cash crunch that could just impede people's ability to actually go out and vote. So that's one practical issue. But what I would say as an economist is that whoever wins this weekend's polls, they are going to inherit Nigeria's worst economy since democracy, and turning the ship around is going to take a lot of hard work, and there is still quite a lot of pain to come for the average Nigerian.
And what about a turnout at this election? A big country, Africa's most populous country. How will that impact the results?
Huge. So Nigeria's voting turnout was quite shambolic in 2019. Only 35% of eligible voters turned out to vote. The expectation is that 2023 should be much higher. We're expecting somewhere between 50 to 60%. Again, Nigerians are generally quite jaded and tired and want change. The sentiment and also the analysis from our polls show that a high turnout scenario would favor the third party candidates, the Labour Party candidates, as a lot of these newer voters are likely to opt for him. But if we do see a low turnout scenario, perhaps because people can't go to vote or a lot of their votes don't get counted properly, then that is likely to favor a more established party, most especially the APC candidate who is running on a ticket of continuity from the present administration.